so she had an emergency. She's going to be about 15 minutes late, but she asked us if we could please start the meeting, and she'll get there as soon as she can. I'd like to call this Jerome Township special meeting to discuss the fire levy and funding the fire department. April 22nd, 2025. The time is 5:20. Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler? Present. Ms. Davis is absent. Mr. Pratt?
Present. If we could all rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Barry. Were there any updates to the agenda that you would like to amend? Any amendments to the agenda?
Yeah, I think we should put the public comments in there, and I'm not sure if we want that before or after discussion.
Let's do a general overview, and then we can kind of in the middle. Okay.
I move that we amend to include public comments during item number 4, as determined by the chair.
Also, we are here to discuss like the fire levy bond issue. I see it just as fire levy, but I wanted to make sure you agree.
Go ahead and modify item number 4 regarding the fire levy bond. Fire bond.
I move that we accept the agenda as modified.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Adler?
Yes.
Ms. Davis? Mr. Pratt?
Yes. All right, we're all here to discuss our upcoming fire levy, which is up for renewal. If we don't renew the fire levy at the end of 26, we'll stop collecting 2025 money. Robert, correct me if anything I say is inaccurate or needs clarification.
That is correct. The last collection year is 2026.
Okay. And the levy that's expiring is the latest levy that we had put out, and it was a 2.9 mil levy, renewal levy with an additional 2.9 mils. To the citizens of Jerome Township, it can be very confusing about property taxes and the township and levies and funding the fire safety services through the fire department and EMS. Because everyone knows each year, and especially each 3 years, when the auditor does a reevaluation of property values, everyone's property taxes go up. However, our fire and EMS levies collected a fixed amount, so over time, the effective millage or the effective rate of collection actually decreases. And just to give you a big example, currently all the levies that Jerome Township has on the books, which would be the 91 to 92 levies, which are indefinite levies, and the levy we're talking about now, which was the renewal levy in 2020 that we put on that collects in 2021 to 2025. That levy, currently, the full tax that's been voted on and put out there, millage, is 18.10 mils. However, the effective millage, when you combine residential and agriculture and commercial and industrial, we're collecting at, actually, I don't have that. But currently, the effective millage out of the 18.1 for residential and agriculture is 6.67 mils, and the current effective rate for commercial and industrial is 9 mils. So you can see of the 18 on the commercial and industrial, we're only collecting about half, and it's because these levies collect a fixed amount of money. Could be a little complicated. Is there anything very, like, in the discussion part, just leading up to this, that we want to make sure that everybody understands?
Well, just to, I guess, add to your points, is that as property values go up, Joe made the point that the rate that is paid through levies is a fixed rate. Additionally, the costs of everything continue to go up. So therefore, the levies that we have now are not going to meet with the rising costs moving forward unless we do, at a minimum, a renewal, which will increase the millage to a set amount higher than what we're taking in right now.
Yeah. So if we put a levy on in 1950 that collected $50,000, it would still be collecting $50,000 annually now, but $50,000 doesn't buy now what $50,000 would buy in 1950 due to inflation and other factors. But everyone's property taxes typically do increase every year, but it doesn't mean that the Jerome Township Fire and EMS Fund is getting any more additional monies. Something else that's very unique to Jerome Township is that we have an enormous amount of commercial industrial development. And what that does is help keep our residential agricultural taxes lower than what they would need to be if we did not have such a strong industrial commercial base. We're very, very lucky. Also, to be mentioned here, many people know that we built a new fire station, 211 in Jerome Township, and that was paid for through the residents of Jerome Township, through the community authority, through additional Jerome Village. I'm sorry, the residents of Jerome Village. Thank you for that one. The residents of Jerome Village, through a special community authority tax that's on their property, and that actually paid for the fire department entirely, and we were able to buy some equipment up there also. So we're very fortunate to have both the fire stations. In our discussion tonight also, Station 210, which is in New California, was built in 92. It was built in 92, and that station is aging out. It's getting older, and we need to have adequate quarters for our paramedic and firefighters to stay and operate out of in offices, and we need to consider what needs to happen with that station. Do we build a new station? Do we add on to the station? Do we remodel the station? Are all things that we have discussed. Just getting down to the dollars, Robert, do you know what that average home valuation approximately for like Central Ohio or this area? Is it like $425 or $4?
I didn't look at that.
Okay.
See what the average is.
I took a look just to see how much my wife and I were paying for fire and EMS through the levies that are currently being collected, and we came in at about $2,200 annually, which be a little less than $200 a month, and I would guess that the average household probably is paying between $100 a month to $200 a month, roughly, depending on what the valuation of their house would be, to give everybody an idea of what you're paying. And as far as your total property taxes go, more than half of our property taxes currently go to Jonathan Alters Local School District. If you live in Jonathan Alters School, I guess I should have checked for Dublin and for, do you know what the split is for Dublin or Fairbanks? I think Dublin is 60, but I don't want to talk out of turn here. But on my taxes in particular, half of the money goes to the school district. About 20% goes to Union County through their Board of Development, Disability Development, Mental Health, the 911 levy, and to the general fund, and health district is separate, okay. And then to Jerome Township itself, about 21% of the taxes go to Jerome Township. Speaking on the chief and the fire department, I've not heard any complaints about the department, and I truly feel the last time that we renewed, when we had to renew the levy and add, that the citizens of Jerome Township were very generous and agreeing that this was money that we need, and I feel the money has been very well spent, and a lot of thought goes into every dollar that we spend into the township fire department and EMS. We did apply and received a SAFER grant as a $1.6 million grant, free money on the grant, and we used that for staffing. Chief, was that 9 positions?
9 new positions paid for nearly all of their salary and benefits for a period of 3 years. It wasn't full.
Nine positions, salaries and benefits for about 3 years, which is incredible. I was so excited when I heard that we had gotten that grant.
I might add that it's,
About the fire.
yeah, it's our responsibility as trustees to protect the public welfare and safety of our residents' businesses. It's paramount importance to us. And I'd like to say the fire department does an excellent job. Appreciate all your efforts. I think that we've been very good in terms of responding, excellent in terms of being fiscally responsible with the funds we allocate to you guys. I think you served our community very well, and I hope that the community appreciates that as we come forward. Basically, we're asking to continue funding and potentially increase funding so you'll be able to continue to provide these services.
The community outreach through the fire department has been excellent. Also, the fire department in EMS, everybody there is on a continual training path to add to their skills, and they also teach CPR out to the public and part of their outreach. In addition to a benefit of being a Jerome Township resident, with the additional commercial and industrial growth, each year the industrial commercial growth, when it comes on board on the tax books, the auditor hasn't yet adjusted the effective millage until the following year. And every year, the amount collected to help run the fire and EMS grows about 8% annually, which is a really good thing, because if inflation's typically 3%, you know, we're outpacing inflation with that growth.
I might add, we have been in the last 10 years, if you look at the comprehensive plan, one of the fastest growing townships in the state of Ohio, and we've increased by 100% roughly our population, over 100%, and we're still trying to catch up in a sense with all those additional homes that are being built and are going to continue to be built over the next few years.
Because we're not really
challenged.
Capturing the residential growth as far as the taxes collect, because our levy that we're talking about tonight raised about $3+ million, and 4 years ago it raised $3+ million. So, you know, it collects, you know, the same. And I think from discussions last time, and Chief Stewart had mentioned this, in 2020 when we had the levy renewal on the ballot to be voted on, one mill in the township collected about $416,000 over the whole township. And currently, there's been enough commercial, industrial growth, and residential growth that one mill would collect about $850,000 in revenue.
Just to clarify,
New levy.
yeah, if you put one mill back then, it collects this much.
Yeah, not, yes.
One mill, it collects this much at this.
So, yeah. So if we were to,
Renewal
No, I'm not
is going
gonna
to
say that.
capture what it is truly capturing, other than the growth, the commercial growth.
yeah,
The
yeah.
new levy is going to capture the new value.
If we were to put 5.8 mil levy on now, it would collect twice as much, you know, over $6 million, as to when we put it on in 2020, which collected a little over $3 million. These numbers are very general. If anybody here wants an exact number, you can get with myself and I'll direct you to Robert. He'll be over there. Help you out there. He helped put together the sheet that I've got numbers on here. I like numbers, but this guy really likes numbers. Wesleyan, we had not had public comment on here, but some members of the public are here, want to hear what we have to say. So opened up the meeting and just went over some general things we discussed before to bring everybody up to speed and make sure that it was all fresh in our minds. And then at this time, I was going to ask for public comment and then have us discuss some more. So,
If we were to do that, did you want to hear anything?
yes, would you like to add to the beginning presentation that I have?
I'll just add just a few little comments about the funds that we received. So Nationwide Realty Investors did have an agreement years ago that allowed for the construction of Station 211. They also donated the land that that building is on. Significant investment in the township. The additional money that we received went towards over $1 million towards the ladder truck, and the rest of the ladder truck was purchased with the ARPA funds, or the COVID relief funds that came in. We also, with our agreement with Mill Creek Township, they are purchasing a tanker for us. That tanker should be delivered in the next 2 months, and that's been an ongoing process for us. That was a $500,000 purchase. All of those, the ladder truck, the tanker, that fire station is going to make a significant impact on our ISO rating. But the bigger benefit is the impact on our firefighters and how we can serve the public. Our EMS
For the public, you want to explain ISO?
ISO, yeah.
ISO rating is how it affects your insurance for your house and for your business. The lower the rating, the better your insurance premiums will be. We are currently at a 3. We went, there were 4 when I got here. Due to the growth of the township, we bumped up to a 5, and then we've been able to reduce that down to a 3. Our goal, obviously, is to get to a 1, but it's going to take a lot of work and significant investment. But we feel we get to a 2 at some point in probably the next 2 to 3 years, which is going to continue to drop insurance rates for everybody. Additional contributions we've had in the fire department through EMS billing, we've been able to purchase new cardiac monitors for the entire fire division plus AEDs, and then purchase 2 medic units in the last, since 2019. So all of that, none of that came out of taxpayers' property taxes. All of that is from outside sources. And we continue to try to be as fiscally responsible as we can and really give back to the residents with everything that we do.
Could you explain how the EMS billing, briefly, like how it works?
Yep. So we have a billing company that takes care of all of our EMS billing, and it's a soft billing. So everything is ran through individual's insurance. If the insurance company doesn't pay, we don't park billing. We're after them. We'll accept what they give. They also bill Medicare, bill to the VA, things like that. So any outside source of insurance, we take what the insurance companies give, and all that goes right directly into the EMS fund to fund things like new medic units, cardiac monitors, firefighter physicals, things like that that we're using to supplement the fire budget. And all that, again, is not out of the taxpayer's pocket. It is directly from insurance premiums and Medicare, Medicaid, things like that.
And then the SAFER grant I had mentioned.
Yes, 1.6 million in the SAFER grant. Chief Building League was the mastermind behind that. That was a huge benefit. It allowed us to increase our staffing by 9, get us up to the levels we're at today. And that did cover not all of the salaries and benefits, but it was a sliding scale. It started at 75%. But that allowed us to have our staffing for 3 years. And that was a huge benefit to our budget and to the residents, because now we can improve that ISO, we can improve the services to the community, and be able to staff 2 fire stations. Without that, I don't know that we would be able to staff the fire stations like we are today.
Support elections training?
No.
Board of Election Training.
Board of Election is open for voting. We're open here on May 6th, I think it is.
And Mr. Kraft, I'll wait till we hear from the public.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So you haven't had any time to discuss. We're just
Yes.
going to bring everyone up to speed.
Thank you.
generally.
And thank you for the grace. I had something unfortunate happen, and thank you for the grace and moving forward with the meeting, letting me catch up. I would like to see what the residents have to say. I have my own personal feelings about this, and I've shared those opinions with our fire chief, but I know that there's a lot going on with property taxes with the residents, from inflation, and we have to balance this all, but I want to see what the general public has to say before we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to be shy. If you'd like to talk, step up to the podium, name and address. Typically, we allow about 3 minutes for comments. We don't have too many people here tonight, so we could probably let you go over a little bit. And if you agree with something someone else said ahead of you, it's okay to say, I agree with what they said, and And if you're too shy to podium it tonight, you can always reach out to us trustees individually. The meeting's being audio and video recorded. Which
Thanks for jumping on
Well, I don't know if I'll take 3 minutes, but I'll jump up here. But no. Hi, I'm Stacy Coburn. I live in Jerome Village. I'm 9707 Persimmon Place. And I'm quite the fan of the fire department and the EMS team. I think they've done an excellent job in our community, raising awareness, safety. And I feel strongly that the people in our community would support them and support the levy. I think we need to allow them the resources to do what they do safely, and be able to train and to train new people that come onto the force. You know, I think the community would support them. I really do. I feel very strongly about that. And, you know, we can rally the forces if needed. And they've just done an incredible job. And I'm proud to have them in our community. And I'm quite the supporter of theirs. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
All right, I'll do that. I was going to say Joe, but that's right. My name's Wayne Dodd. I live at 10675 Laguna Circle, Plain City, over in California. I think that, well, I would echo what the previous speaker said, that I'm a big fan of the policing, the fire department, the EMS, road crew. They all do a good job. And I know that everybody knows that it's going to be a rough sell, probably, for all the taxes that are being mounted on. And I would just offer some advice that you guys probably already got it figured out, but whenever you present it, make sure that you put all the facts on a whiteboard or something like that so everybody can see, because, you know, this mill, that mill, this mill, that mill. I get paid by a check, not by a mill. I understand that that's how you guys have to deal with it. Now, I feel bad that you have to deal with it because, you know, they're really not very popular right now. Just ask some people up the road. So, the other thing too is whenever you're giving your presentations on it, let everybody know that some of these people back here are being groomed to be, you know, to carry on what you've got already.
Leadership positions. Leadership positions. Is that what you mean within the fire department?
Leadership, any place that you can get manpower, try to get it local. Try to get it from good people. Good people usually hang out with good people and know good people to get in there and work together better. So that's kind of the advice that I would do. And then other thing, if you're going to build a new one, where are you going to put it? And what do you got in mind with it? You know, maybe if you look at where all your runs are and things like that, maybe have more, this one here, down here, heavier with EMS, or that one heavier, you know, try to pair your runs up with what kind of runs are typically done. Just a thought. The other thing too is that, you know, Jill brought up that you got a lot of industrial down here. So, having spent a few years in a couple of industrial settings, each one of those places that you go into, you guys know that there's a lot of stuff in there. It isn't, you don't find it in your house. Probably there's some stuff in there that you certainly don't want on your Cheerios this morning. And I just feel bad that y'all have to run and stuff like that. And somebody's careless with how they do their work. And they've got stuff sitting in unlabeled containers. You don't know what the heck it is. You don't even know whether it's supposed to be there or clearing another building. So those people, the industrial people, they need to work with you guys a lot, and it's going to take an extra effort, I think. And maybe before you've got a lot of industrial, maybe that's a good place for a substation or something. I don't know. I mean, try to think outside the box, lay it all out so that lay it all out, get all the information out there, but make sure that a 5-year-old can understand it, because that's kind of where I'm at, okay? So,
Do you have a preference of what you would like to see on the ballot? Do you feel a simple renewal, an increase? Do you feel that more needs to be done?
I would like to see some numbers on it, so that you, there again in that presentation, put on, okay, we can do this, but that's only going to get us here. If we do this and we're growing the way we are, we really need this. Because, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, there's a few houses going up around here. So, no, I just like to be, that's what I meant in the beginning, is make sure you get your numbers out there. And mills are fine for you all to understand them, but take an example of somebody with a $400,000 house, and here's going to be the impact to you. You know?
Chief, are you able to speak to that right now? In any capacity?
We'll hit it right after
Public comment? Okay.
So we do have those dollar numbers, so if you got a little bit of time, we're gonna talk a little more about that.
Well, yeah, that's fine, because that's what the people that I talk with say, you guys don't need all that kind of stuff down there and this and that, one thing and another. It's like, okay, you've never been bleeding along the side of the road, have you? So,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry I was so long-winded.
All right, anyone? Yes? I won't say it.
Hi, good afternoon.
What?
State your name and address.
I want you to state my name and my address. My name is Andrea Watson. I live at 12080 Taylor Road, right down the road. So, I know a lot of the community is very supportive of the fire department. We have a huge silent community, I feel like. They're not sitting here yet, but as Stacy said, if I need a roundabout, bring them here, I will, to support this whole crew and a lot of other ones. I know for a fact, I hear all the stuff that you have received in grants, and I mean the truck, the fuel, you have a ladder truck, a tanker truck, the land, the building. I mean, they have invested time and effort, I feel like, beyond measure for grants and money to save this community, money in general, for us to have things to service our community. And and my other question was this: is that safety grant that you spoke of, was that just a safety grant that you qualified for with Eric?
So it's a FEMA grant, we could reapply.
Okay.
And use that for additional staffing once the FEMA grants open back up.
Okay, I got you. I was just kind of curious because I wanted to know if we could have utilized that money, because I feel like the community should be funding the women that are servicing their payroll. I'm sorry.
That money, I feel like, should be something else that you guys need in safety or programs that they need to support them emotionally, mentally, whatever it takes. I'm sorry, they are exposed to a lot of stuff. I mean, I think we take for granted them. We do. I absolutely do. And if anything, safety is first for me in our community. And I know a lot of the people here are about safety. I realize money is an issue. Money's an issue for me. I work at the gas station one night a week because my friend owns it. And I'm not too good for nothing. So I see a lot of them in there, and I see them working at the gas station. I've seen them take calls, and I appreciate every one of you. And I'm there for police and fire both. So you speak of money, and I mean, I get it. If that means it needs to be a renewal, or if that means it needs to be an increase, I feel like we need to listen. We need to hear what they need, because they've saved an awful lot of money as a community as to what they've done so far. So I feel like we need to belly up. I'm sorry. It's my spiel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Towards that, could I initiate some discussion about actual dollars and put it in terms of Mr. Dodge was saying, what does it cost us?
Not
What are our
having the
revenues?
mills, right.
Well,
No
what's it
mills.
cost- What's it cost to run the fire department?
Right.
At our current staffing levels.
Is it possible when we do this, because we have looked at option 1, 2, and 3, and just go through those numbers and those options? Okay.
Sure. So as presented to me when I met with the fire chief and the battalion chiefs, there were 3 priorities. One was maintaining what they have. 2 was addressing the situation with Station 210. And 3 was staffing to get up to the national standards and so that they can fully man the equipment and stations that they have. So taking that into account, current levy that we're talking about, the full tax rate is 5.8 mils. We're collecting at 3.9, which collects $3.4 million. A renewal will stay exactly the same. Well, and that costs the taxpayer $120 per $100,000 home. A renewal, which was option 1, to maintain what you have, will not change. You will pay exactly on this new levy what you're paying on the old levy,
So $120 per
100,000.
100,000.
And if your 100,000 goes up, so let's say your house is valued at 400,000, and this fall, when you meet with the county auditor, she says your house is going up to 500,000, that 120 will drop to 100, so you're still paying the exact same amount you were paying on the 400,000 house that you're paying on the 500,000 house.
Very confusing because.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
If they meet with the auditor and they tell them, we got great news for you, your house is worth $500,000 instead of 400, the taxes go up, but the amount of money that the fire department levy collects is the same.
That is correct. Correct. A kind of side option of that is there's the option to renew with an increase. We kind of plugged in a 1 mil increase. A 1 mil provides $850,000 more per year for the fire department, and it costs the taxpayer an additional $31 per year per $100,000.
Okay. For the sake of the public, say it again.
Okay. So renewal with an increase, which would be a full rate of 6.8 or an effective rate of 4.9, collects an additional $850,000 and costs the taxpayer an additional $31 per 100,000. So instead of paying 120, you would be paying 151 per 100,000. Okay? An additional option is what they call is a replacement levy. What a replacement levy does, it reestablishes your base. So instead of collecting at that effective rate of 3.9, it bumps your effective rate out back to 5.8. That would result in instead of collecting $3.4 million, you would collect $5 million, an increase of $1.4 million. And that would cost the taxpayer $58 additional per $100,000.
Wow. So when you would speak, you would say, we're just asking for the same millage as we were before, and it would be kind of a fool, people wouldn't completely understand it. They actually would be paying $58 more per $100,000 value per year, even though the bills sounded good. Kind of like Wayne was saying, talked about the dollars, yes.
Just to clarify, it's possible that we may not be able to call it replacement levy in the November ballot, is that correct?
So what Mr. Agler is referring to is there's a current, I don't think it's a House bill yet, but they're working in the State House to remove the option to do replacement levies. They feel that they're confusing to the taxpayer. I don't know what they're going to call them, whether it's just going to be called a new levy then. I think that's even more confusing if you come out and say you're wanting to pass a new levy, because you really are replacing an old levy. So it's verbiage.
But it goes back to what I said,
Yeah.
the confusing part about it.
Yes.
It sounds good, but really could cost much, much more.
And to add, I'll just say briefly, there's more layers to this. There's part of this 5.0 levy, half of it is a qualifying levy, and half of it is a non-qualifying levy. And the qualifying levy, the state pays 12.5% for the homeowner. And the non-qualifying, which was something they passed in 2018, I believe, to balance the state budget, they stopped paying that 12.5%. So any new levies after that date, the state does not pay that share. Any renewal, the state continues to pay that share. So that's why many political subdivisions are doing renewals with increases so the taxpayers maintain that state credit.
So,
And dollars for, if we didn't renew what we've got going on, we're looking at $230,000 approximately, almost 12.5%.
Yeah, I didn't do the math on the 12.5%.
Okay.
so in layman's terms, a resident that's listening understands that option 1 stays the same. Option 2, it's a $31 increase per
Yes.
100,000.
Yes.
Option 3, it's a $58 increase per
Yes.
100,000.
Yes.
Chairman, do you care if we ask the residents what they think of that? Because I'm curious to know.
Yep, we can open up.
Well, before you do that, I think we need to take a look at what our expenses are versus what our income is to see at what point are we going to be spending more money than what we're taking in. So that's an important piece to consider, not just how much of it is spent.
We did a 20-year forecast. The word inflation was used and a number was thrown out there, but not all of our expenses are tied to inflation. This past year, we saw a recommended 43% increase in our health insurance costs. We negotiated it down to 38. So it's well over, close to about $70,000 a month we pay in health insurance costs. We've seen the cost of fire equipment skyrocket from $525,000 for an engine to 1.2 for a fire engine.
With the 3 year.
Yes. So those costs have significantly outpaced inflation. We currently have seen an average increase in revenue of 8% due to new construction. But that's not keeping pace with those increased prices and costs. We currently have a slight surplus in the fire division fund, but we're showing pretty much a break even over those first 5 to 7 years of the forecast. We're not increasing staff at all, which is not the option that they would prefer. So those are kind of some of the numbers of where we're at right now.
And I guess the question we'd like to address is, what would it cost us to staff at the levels that are recommended? And what are our best options for reaching those levels and not running a deficit?
So we think the 1 mil addition would be enough to cover that. We didn't do too much calculation of anything more than that because we just didn't feel that that's something that the taxpayers wanted to take on as a burden at this point in time, especially based upon the other piece of this that we haven't talked about yet, the rebuild of Station 210. So we thought that about the maximum that we could ask taxpayers for would be a 1 mil increase.
Do you want to address the bond and how much that would increase what taxpayer would pay?
Well, I think we should talk about the levy. I don't want to get it too.
Yes, so there's two components. Right now, all we've talked about is continued operations, operating costs, salaries, equipment.
Before we get
benefits.
too far ahead, I just want to hear what the residents think about what they've heard so far, if you're willing.
I'd like to know what they need.
Okay.
I want to know.
That's a fair ask.
Okay, that's
So this would be is this our third meeting just dedicated to the fire levy?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct,
So,
I realize I apologize.
Oh, it's okay.
I won't be in court attendance from now on, but.
I'm going to let this chief talk, but I will say that the need expressed was add an additional, one additional person at each shift, at each station. And I think it was going to end up being 9 to 10 positions total. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, so ultimately, if we look at the township growing, and it's growing leaps and bounds, we had over 100% increase in population in 10 years with the last census. And who knows where it is just within the last 5 years. Looking out ahead, we really have to start looking at the third station. This levy is not going to cover that third station. We're doing 1 mil renewal, or 1 mil additional. It's not going to cover that station for staffing that station. What we're looking at right now to get our crews the proper staff they need at each station, so we're not cross-staffing, we can serve both ends of the township, is to get our staffing up. That's 10 additional positions. That allows us to put 1 more in community safety to do inspections and safety, education, things like that. But it also puts 3 more personnel on each shift that will really reduce our cross-staffing to a very bare minimum, allow us to staff a minimum of 5 at Station 211, 6 to 7 at Station 210. This becomes important when we're staffing our apparatus like a ladder truck. NFPA 1710 recommends 4 people on a ladder truck. On an engine is 3 people. That is far below what bigger communities are staffing. Washington Township or neighbors, I believe they're staffed with at least 4 on each fire apparatus. That puts 2 firefighters in the medic unit. But what happens when that medic unit goes out on a cardiac arrest? That engine is chasing them, so we can have enough staffing there to get our residents to the hospital. At a bare minimum, this 10 is where we need to be over the next few years. But globally, we have to start looking at that third station. But this levy is not even going to touch that funding that we need. The bigger fix comes, I wanted to talk about it later, but the bigger fix comes, we get the renewal now, get the bond issue passed, but then come back and fix all of the levies so we can operate off of one levy that funds all of our needs for years to come.
Okay, can we-
At those staffing levels, did that include the chief and battalion chiefs in those numbers?
Yeah, right now we have 34 full-time. That includes all the prevention, community safety personnel, and myself and the battalion chiefs and our operations personnel. We would add 10 additional positions. We have 6 part-time positions. Those firefighters work every 6th day on a 24-hour basis.
One thing I'd like Robert to clarify, if we were in 2020 and we needed to raise a similar amount of money, you would need to ask for twice as much, or 2 mils to raise.
Yes.
So we're in a good situation if we were to add additional millage to the current levy because the tax base is doubled. The tax base valuation is doubled. Increasing valuations and folks build industrial commercial.
Then I have one question. So proposal, realistically, what is the number? That's why, what is that?
So, if I'm following our resident here, my question to you, Chief, is we're talking about the growth, we're talking about staffing needs, we're talking about how this levy wouldn't even touch a third station. When you say that, are you talking about the renewal, option 1? Will not touch the station that we would need for the staffing, or just one of those?
Either one.
It wouldn't touch either one. So the option 1, the renewal of what we have already, doesn't touch staffing, and it doesn't touch the build out of it. So option 2, the $31 per $100 or $100,000 per property, what does that cover? Does that cover staffing?
It would only cover staffing.
It will cover staffing,
It's not going to get us to 10 positions.
but it will not get, how many positions does that get you?
7.5.
7.5?
Yeah, 7.5 probably a good number.
So option 2 gets us 7.5 positions in a fast-growing township.
And those positions are just to get station 210 and 211 staff
Function.
appropriately, but that 7 is
Appropriate.
not going to get us there. It's going to get us closer, but it's not going to get us there.
So option 2 gets us staffed appropriately, but not to the need of this township. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And I'm not saying we have to build a third station tomorrow.
Please. This third station,
I didn't know it's about to explode.
the trustees have not agreed or talked about a third station. The chief has recommended it due to the response times in the southern part of the township and the amount of development that's there. But I don't want anyone saying that this levy has anything to do with the third station. The more we talk about the third station, I'm afraid it's going to confuse people.
It's a realistic growth in our area.
Sure, and the facts are, this township has been very savvy due to our fire chief too, with building a second fire station without any taxpayer dollars, okay? So this board has been very adamant about finding creative and alternative ways to generate funds without asking for money from our residents in the form of all kinds of things. Economic development tools, developer contributions, our JED, NCAs that we've been working on with developers.
Community authorities.
Community
which is what you're
authorities
saying, yeah.
and land donations. We've done a great job with that with the assistance of our fire chief. So let's just table the thought of third fire station. But as we're discussing option 3, which is the $58 increase per 100,000 per property, what does that cover? What do you get?
That is only, again, only going to cover staffing, and it's going to
gives
to
us 10
appropriately
positions.
staff the 2 current fire stations.
Okay.
And then that'll help a little bit with our other operational
Capital
expenses.
improvements.
It's not gonna do a ton of money in capital improvements.
Okay.
You're gonna have to be very savvy about how we purchase in the future.
But would you say it allows us to use our other economic development tools to solely dedicate to these other needs?
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other options, is what I'm also asking ultimately, other than what has been brought about?
This is the expertise of our fiscal officer that I wouldn't even dare try to.
Talk about options.
Respectfully, I'm
Yeah.
not questioning you, I just wanted to know a real.
Renewal,
Right.
there's renewal with an increase or decrease, there's a replace, and then we have a couple of other levies that are indefinite levies on the books
Right.
that we've discussed replacing. Ultimately, that's what we would love to do, because I think your fire department should have indefinite levies, because they're here to stay. You know, that way you don't have to come back every 5 years and go through what we're going through right now, because we've done it 5 times now. And it's terrible when it fails multiple times in a row. So there's that option, but the biggest downfall to that, to be exactly even where we are with the 10 mil levy that we passed in 1992, we would have to do a 6.6 mil levy. But then again, you lose, that entire levy is qualified. So it would cost taxpayers, even if we're collecting the exact same amount, it will cost you as a homeowner 12.5% more, because we lose those credits. So we've been reluctant to do that, to get rid of any of those credits until something maybe happens with the state where they abolish them altogether. So that's why just looking at renewals with an increase seems to be the best option for the taxpayer.
Mr. Dodge, when you hear those 3 options and the needs, do you have an opinion on one of those 3 options?
Well, I guess what I'd like to see is, I'd like to see them get what they need and be able to sustain and be able to grow. That's what I would do.
You echo that? You echo that?
I agree.
Robert, what option would that be?
So, if we can look at like a renewal with a 2 mil increase or a renewal with a 2.5 mil increase, we'd have to go back and take a look at our numbers to see exactly what that would be. We were concerned that the majority of the public, especially one group that has been very vocal against our levies, would not support anything more than a 1.
I would like to see the numbers on a 2.0. And I think the community is going to absolutely support them for it. They need what they need, and we're growing like mad. And if that is not covering what they need, I mean, we're sitting here running in circles. That's silly. So why would we not we gotta do it. Like I said, belly up. They saved a lot of money. We have a tanker. They're constantly doing stuff for our community. I mean, I just feel like that should be an option, and I feel like the community would support it. Even up to 2.5, I'm sorry, I'm for it. I am 12.5 acres. I get it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for saying that.
And Robert's working the numbers out. Once the board decides and puts the levy on the ballot, we're really going to need community support to spread what we're hearing today and stamp out any misconceptions about the levy. And we're not allowed, the Jerome Township isn't allowed to spend any taxpayer money to promote the levy. It has to all be separate and private.
We're allowed to educate on matters, but.
Like we could do a newsletter to talk
But
about.
we can't say,
the-
please vote yes on the levy.
Yeah.
Safety and no problem. Help that.
Robert?
So as indicated, a $1 mil increase would be $856,000 or $31 per $100,000 home. A 2 mil would be 1.7 million in revenue or $62 per 100,000. And a 2.5 would raise $2.1 million and would be $76 per $100,000.
So you have to.
Per year.
Per year, but.
Per year. So five.
If you take a $500,000 home, you have to multiply that by 5 times.
Yes.
So $400 rounded up.
Yeah.
On 500.
That's in addition to the $120 for
Which is
100,000 you're paying now.
And no residents would oppose that sitting here right now? No? Okay.
So like I mentioned before, that 2.5 mil increase would be $800 for myself on top of the $2,200 I'm already paying. So I go from $2,200 to $3,000 for fire and EMS.
Just some additional history, we have come to the public with numbers that we've needed and they failed. So we've had to cut them every single time in order to get it passed. So that's why we were kind of thinking, well, let's go in at the low end versus the high end.
And I'm sorry I've been absent, so you
No, that's
couldn't hear
all
of the community on my behalf. So.
And just the other thing to put in perspective, there's been a number of levies, school levies that failed locally. There's been other fire levies that have also failed, so we're trying to be conservative in our approach.
Probably should recommend it because there's a number of community members that would not like to see any increase. I understand.
Yes.
I'd like to see, I 100% agree with you. And a lot of the people that I talk to about failing school levies and that, and I was been at one of them, was that the people up there literally told the crowd they didn't know how to read profit and loss statement. Come on. You can't talk to people like that. It's how you present. If that guy would have got up there and showed us what he needed and why he needed it without taking all day, he's got it. Just like anybody goes to buy a car. I don't use service on that.
Sure. And when we talk about school levies, there are a lot of residents that feel very deeply that there's a culture war going on in schools, so that impacts it. People feel that there's administrative bloat that goes on, so that impacts it. This is about public safety, and it is a very different thing. And my question is for our fire chief, is the reason, because I think that I heard you say, I don't know if it was your recommendation, but you were seeking only a renewal. Is it because of fear of failing?
So it's also tied to the bond issue.
Okay,
And
can
then
you
want to
please
come
help me
back
understand?
Later and fix everything. So that was probably the path of least resistance after talking to everybody on the board and getting just a very little bit of feedback from the public. Nothing like we've had today.
This is wonderful.
Yeah,
I would
it is.
love to have a
Right.
full house of residents talking it out with each other.
Sure.
And give
I
me a
would
better
love that
feeling
too.
where they're at, because I'll tell you what, I am sheepish. I've had the failed levy and had to come back and ask for a different amount. And
So my grandmother is,
51%, right, Robert? This isn't a 60% deal, it's 51%. Right.
so my grandmother is 95 years old and in great health and lives on her own. And she probably would vote against a school levy all the live long day because she's paid into the schools for years and years and years, and she's 95 years old. There's not a day that she would not vote for a fire levy. because they're going to be the ones at the door when she needs them most. And that's my concern as well, because we have a population in this, we have EPCON units all through this township, elderly folks that live out in the country as well, and, what if we can't get to them? That's what I worry about,
So to answer your question a little bit, we have essentially three competing priorities.
Okay.
Staffing, it's a priority. When I took over as fire chief, we had 13 firefighters, and our budget was in horrible condition. We've been able to increase our staffing, we'll put up a second station with the assistance of the safer grant, being really fiscally responsible. But also, it goes to the firefighters for not coming in and begging and pushing and demanding major salary increases. They've been very conservative in their requests, and they give back every single day, not just in their service to the community, it's keeping the firehouse. The other priority is that firehouse, Station 210. It's 33 to 34 years old. I would say it's a toxic nightmare.
So I have opinions about this, and if you don't mind, I'm going to go on a little bit of a soapbox. People don't become...
We've only been talking
We're not
about
talking about-
operating right now.
yeah.
We really haven't talked about the capital.
Sure. But, what we don't want to do is run on thin staff. I mean, things happen every day. And then on top of that, I'm very proud of our board because people become firefighters to be millionaires. They are community, they're servants to the community essentially. And many firefighters can't even afford to live in this township, and I am very aware of that. And I feel very strongly that they need to be paid well. They need nice mattresses. They need more than 2 bathrooms to share when there's 13 people in a fire station. So we have to think about these things too. And I don't know that the public always knows all these details. It's not that they don't care, it's that they are not aware of this. And as we discuss this levy, I think that it's very important that we remember that these folks spend, a third of your life living at our fire station, and that means something, and we have to take good care of our firefighters. So as we discuss this further, I would like to talk more about the bond issue, because that's a pole barn. And I've seen the living quarters, not my favorite.
There's either.
Call me bougie. I think they deserve better.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I think it's not an issue of, they want a fancy place to sleep.
They don't want
They
something
want
fancy.
a place to sleep in some cases.
Something nice where, they're not standing in line to use the restroom as well.
Or using the outhouse behind the firehouse, because that happens.
That's unacceptable.
That happens.
That's unacceptable.
I think it would be appropriate to just kind of also throw out some numbers for the bond issue, because if you decide one thing and then come back and figure out, oh, that's even much more money than they want to have for the first thing.
They're very interconnected. And I would like to say that being an older person myself,
Oh, stop.
I do
Joe.
have some elderly
You're a spring
relatives.
chicken.
I do have some elderly relatives, and I never realized what lift assist meant until they needed a little help.
Yeah.
You fall down, you call and say, got a lift, no injuries, we don't think, but we need a lift assist, and they'll come out and help somebody get up. You may not be able to get up safely on their own. I just wanted to mention that.
So as I started out, one of the 3 things that they identified: maintain what they have, address the issues with 210, and then increase staff to the appropriate levels. So I think that's the segue to talk about Station 210. It was built in 1992. It was built on the available funds that they had at the time. They did pass 2 indefinite levies in 91 and 92 that totaled 12.3 mils. In our research in past levies, we kind of determined that In order to operate where you really need to be, the fire department needs 12.5. And what we're proposing isn't going to get us that, but that would be our ultimate goal to get to. Segue to station 2.
So
The 210's the station.
it's in New California, right on 42. As Mr. Caldwell said, it was built in 1992. Things we identified, major concerns for us, and yeah, it's a pole barn. It served its purpose when there was 2 to 3 people there staffing it in the 90s. Now, on a daily basis, there's days where we have 7 and then shift change. We have the administrative staff plus 7 to 8 on each shift. So imagine all those people fighting over 2 bathrooms. Kind of tough. But here's some of the issues that we've identified. They used to smoke in that firehouse for years and years. That stuff never goes away. That saturated those walls, saturated that building. The vehicle exhaust, prior to the exhaust capture system, all that exhaust went throughout the building. And it still does to some extent, because the exhaust system that we have is not dated and needs replaced. We, this past year, had mold in the HVAC system, which we had to have the company come in and take care of. The HVAC system is not sized appropriately for the building. The apparatus may heat. We went without heat for a while this year, trying to get parts for the system, because the system is 33 to 34 years old. It was a great system, but everything has a life expectancy. They already talked about the limited bathrooms, no private areas for personnel of different genders. We don't really have a training room. The training room is right off of 2 of the bunk rooms that have a curtain that are personnel. There's 4 recliners, and that's where they do their training. We did convert our training room so we could have office and sleeping quarters for personnel that are there. We have major concerns exiting the fire station on 42 and returning, because there's only one access in, and we know that the 500 speedway that goes up and down 42 is tough for our fire trucks to even get out, let alone coming back in the fear of getting rear-ended as they're trying to turn into the firehouse. Not enough room to safely house our apparatus. We're growing, and that station wasn't designed to hold the apparatus. We have the size of the trucks. We had looked, back when Mr. Rhodes was a trustee, looked at a rear mount aerial, and we couldn't, it was a great deal, we couldn't purchase it because the bays weren't high enough, and we didn't have a building big enough. It wasn't meant to house that type of truck, so we kind of limited on the apparatus that we could buy. The HVAC system, the room sits right off of the bay floor, so the fresh air is being pulled in and then circulated throughout the building. So our firefighters are constantly getting exposed to anything and everything. We don't have any decon facilities at this station. Station 211, you know, we have a decon room that immediately goes into a decon bathroom. That way we can clean everything, and it stays out in the hot zone. The station is not divided into hot, warm, and cold zone. Our architect can kind of speak to that a little bit, but all the hot zone is where contaminants are. Then you got the warm zone, that's the transition to get our firefighters clean, and then the cold zone is the living areas, the bunk rooms, the kitchen, things like that. Mr. Tides talked about, you know, whatever we're getting exposed to is on our Cheerios in the morning. That happens currently. The fire station does not have a fire alarm or fire suppression system. You go by a house today, it has hardwired smoke detectors, sometimes carbon monoxide detectors. We have installed just battery-operated smoke detectors. There's no fire suppression, there's no fire alarm system. There's no tornado shelter. That station, I'd have to ask Mike, because he's the historian, but I can't tell you how many times it's been struck by lightning. Again, it's...
10 times?
So it's...
Really?
Yeah.
We haven't put a lightning rod on it yet?
Yeah. The building does not...
Check your batteries in your smoke detector.
Yes. The building does not meet current building or fire code standards for the state of Ohio. And I will say years and years of exposures. We know of at least 6 to 7 firefighters that have cancer, and over half of those have died of cancer. Whether that was an exposure on the fire scene, but it all comes back to that firehouse. The concrete, we did replace the concrete in the front, but the concrete on the sides and in the back of the building is deteriorating and now is impacting safety where, in areas where we have to address that so firefighters don't twist an ankle over regular hazard. The roof, I can't tell you how many times we've patched the roof, but it still continues to leak. That list goes on and on and on. And we chose to do, we could do remodel, but at the end of the day, we're just patching or painting over the same problems that we've had for the last 30 years. And that's why, I asked Joe White, our architect, to come in and speak to why we would do a rebuild versus a remodel. So, Joe, can I 3 minutes bucks?
Sorry?
At 3 minutes bucks?
Yeah, I guess so.
So, Mr. Wackman was our architect for Station 211. He is partially responsible for Station 211 getting the notable entry award in Firehouse Magazine because of the station design. It addressed the firefighter safety. It addressed not only the physical well-being of the firefighter, but the mental health. Gave us that hot, warm, and cold zones, and gave us decon areas. Gave us areas where firefighters can go if they have a bad run. They can go and decompress. Private areas, a physical fitness area that they can go and maintain their health and safety. All those things is contributed from Mr. Whiteman and his firm in designing that fire station, and the same thing that we would anticipate having at Station 210 when we rebuild it. So, if you want, you're up.
Yeah, and the podium, yep.
So I gotta get my address?
Yes. Give me your work address.
Okay. My name is Joe Whiteman, and I am an architect with Mole and Whiteman Architects. I'm happy to be here. Our office is at 4525 Indianola Avenue. Can you hear me? I got kind of a soft voice.
Okay, can I say, we had originally started going down the path of USDA loan, and the township hired Mole Whiteman to do what's called a PAR, preliminary architectural report for the USDA loan. And we held off on that because we had the funds to pay for that loan once we would accept it because of the escalating costs that we were seeing. That's why we have Joe, and he's done a lot of background research for that PAR and really getting a proposal and estimates for Station 210 rebuild. Sorry.
No problem. I guess it's a hard where to start with this. I mean, you've hit so many things, and there are so many shortfalls on the existing station. I don't know if we want to talk about new versus remodel. I'll hit on some stuff. Please ask questions. I'll do the best to go through this stuff. But as Chief mentioned, the building was built in '92, and I think that's the same year that George, the first Bush, signed the ADA law into effect. The ADA does not exist in that station, from hallways, circulation. I know you didn't hit on that yet, but I'm just going to hit on a couple of those things. Also, since 1992, there's been a lot of building code changes. Like Chief alluded to some of those. For example, now we are, as a fire station, backing up, my firm specializes in public safety projects. It's about 95% of what we do. So we're students of this industry and students of this business. We spend a lot of time going to national seminars, speaking at some of them, and we've seen these guys at some of them, and they've, took the time. The best thing that a department that I'd say to anybody, the best thing you can do is get out there and learn about what the building type needs. Because a lot of people, and especially lay people, think that a fire station is a house with a really big garage, and there's a hell of a lot more to it than that. And to make it work and be safe and promote safety is a heck of a responsibility and a lot of things to learn as you go. In terms of the building codes that I started on, fire station, police station, hospitals are now what is called essential facilities. As essential facilities, they have added structural requirements, seismic requirements, so the wind loads are higher in essential facilities. Seismic comes into play, believe it or not. Everybody says, there's no earthquakes. Yeah, there are. And it is a part of the design factors that we have to look at when we design a station. It may require reinforcing of ductwork or grid sealing, your electrical panels, whatnot. Because the bottom line is why these essential facilities, why the conditions go up is we need to be able to operate these when there are issues, right? We don't want the fire station there and the fire department stuck inside because they have stuff falling down on top of them and whatnot. They can't get out the doors of the station. So that whole essential facility design, you know, if you go back and look at a pole barn versus a, you know, essential facility design, there's a lot of space in between there. I'm not saying it couldn't work. It's going to take a lot of analysis structurally. There are a lot of issues with the existing station, structure, environmental, all that stuff. All that's got to be, you know, just really studied and determine what's the best solution for the township, you know, and that's what we do when we do feasibility studies. You know, we're doing several right now where we look at an existing station, look at remodeling on it, look at a new site, see what that would mean, and then compare and contrast, you know, what makes the most sense for the taxpayers and for the fire department. So, again, I'm probably bouncing all around, so tell me to shut up whenever you need to, Chief. So, other things to talk about, Chief mentioned quickly the storm shelter. Now that is a building code requirement, again, for an essential facility. We have to have a tornado shelter in our environment, so reinforcing a room for the tornado shelter. If you've been to New Station 211, you've seen that, probably the turnout gear room that has been designed as a storm shelter that has a 12-inch thick roof on it, and it's got reinforced concrete block walls with grout and reinforcing in every single core. It's got special hinges on the doors. Any openings in there have to have baffles or be protected so that a wind-borne, you know, projectile couldn't go through the opening. The size has to be at a certain size and protected. So all that stuff adds to the cost of this new construction and adds to, you know, what makes the most sense for, you know, redoing the existing facility. You know, again, not saying that can't be done. It's a balancing act that we're going to have to get through. NFPA regulations, standards, they've been changing. Chief mentioned hot and cold and that whole design consideration. Basically, in a nutshell, what that is like Chief said, we design the building so we isolate the hot zones from the cold zones, which again, the hot zones would be the apparatus bays, things that are coming back from scenes that potentially have more contaminants on them, and the associated apparatus support spaces that, you know, take care of that contamination when they get back to the station. The goal is to minimize the opportunity for cross-contamination between those zones. So again, a good barrier between the living quarters and the apparatus bays, and then the proper MEP mechanical systems to help facilitate the lack or the ability to separate those two zones. So the warm zones that Chief alluded to are what we call transition vestibules between the apparatus bays and the living quarters. So we design those pressurized to keep the fumes on the bay out there. And then we also recycle the air. Same thing with the tornado shelter, the turnout gear storage. All those have new NFPA requirements that we've got to be up on and designed to. Again, with the turnout gear, we can't have fluorescent lighting. We need to have air changes in there, exhaust. We want to have cooling. We want to have dehumidification. These guys go out on a lot of runs in these summer months when it gets hot, that they're coming back. They're not going to wash their turnout gear because it wasn't a fire necessarily, but their gear is wet and icky. So having a dehumidified room that is the turnout gear storage, all that is good, good design. So
when you talk to the surveys that you did prior to building that PDR and how we came about with where we're at today with with that station.
Yeah, in terms of analysis of the existing station,
Yes.
I think you hit on a lot of the issues there. We did do a presentation also that was, we took a survey of all the firefighters. All of them were able to take the survey. We compile the results. We talk about them. We look at what we see as we go through the station as well. But, you know, Chief hit on some of those. I know we had some pictures in our presentation that showed things like windows that are propped open. If you did need to open them for a little ventilation, you need to put a brick in there to hold them open because they don't work anymore. You know, there's a lot of issues with that building, from the mechanical systems, lighting systems, code inadequacies with the existing infrastructure of the building. Good luck. Anything in particular, Chief, am I hitting on stuff or?
And actually, if you could just kind of touch on the increases in cost of construction over, since we started Station 211 to where we're at today, and where we'd probably be later this year.
Okay, yeah, we have our pulse on the industry because it is a lot of what we do. We just bid the new main station for the city of Delaware 305 last Thursday. That station is it's a renovation of an existing metal building out on 3637. It was a
Furniture warehouse.
It's not an ideal site. It's a really tough site. It's a real narrow site. There's a lot of reasons that don't make it a great site for a fire station. But again, in Delaware, finding land, just like down here, finding the land is a real challenge. But that station at bid last week, you know, that thing, we're at about 31,000 square feet total, and our cost estimate for that was just over $15 million. You know, that's a lot of money, obviously.
How many square feet was it?
31,000. So our low bid, we got 8 bidders on that project, and that's amazing in this economy, because I bid a project about a month ago up in Galion, Ohio, and we had 1 bidder. I had 4 pre-qualified bidders for it, and only 1 of them came in and gave us a bid. 2 of them couldn't get subcontract prices for electrical and mechanical systems. So the industry's tough, you know, with the Intel down in your area here, all the industrial construction. I mean, it's a tough market, but we're thrilled to have 8 bidders on that. And our average bid was right on our number. Our estimate was $15,400,000, and the average bid of the 8 bidders was about $15.5. The low bid on it was $13,527,000. So they were low, and they were over $1 million lower than our second bid, which is scary. Because, you know, the first thing that comes to our mind is what they forget, right? So what we do in that case is we have interviews with them, which we had yesterday, and we're checking references, and we're going deeper into their subcontractor evaluation stuff. All that to say that in the industry, when we did your Station 211, we were at $4,400,000. Does that sound right? $4,273,667 at the end of the day. We just finalized a cost estimate, final cost estimate. We're doing Jefferson Township and Franklin County in Blacklick. And it's based on your station. They toured 211. I got too many numbers of stations running around in my head here. But they toured the station. They loved the station. We made a few changes to it, tried to reduce it because of cost. We are at 9,510 square feet there, and our estimate is $571 a square foot. And that's we've seen everything from when we did Concord Township in 2013, that was $202 a square foot, and now we're at $571 a square foot. It's crazy. I look at this stuff. I talked to my dad before he passed away as a contractor for years, and I tell him what these numbers were, and he just about fell out of his chair, because it's unbelievable. But you all know, you paid for eggs, and you're living the life, doing what you do, and you see it everywhere you go. But this isn't going to change. We can hope that we have, good bidder involvement like we had at Delaware, because that definitely helps, and we can have, hopefully the economy will do whatever it's going to do, and the tariffs and all that stuff, but we don't have a crystal ball, so when we're looking at these costs, we're trying to track by our history, by our friends and our colleagues in the industry. Again, we go to seminars across the country. We're going in May, we'll be speaking at that thing again. And we share as a group to understand what's going on. And it's not always, great to hear what's happening in San Francisco. That's very different than Jerome Township. But at the same time, we can identify and see how things are moving in the industry. So,
Chief, what was our cost to build 211?
So with all costs, we were just under 5.3 million.
Does that have equipment in there, or is that just furnishing?
That is just
Building
building and repair and furnishing.
$400 a square foot cheap.
What I think 410, 412,
okay.
roughly.
So now we're looking at that same as 570, 580. So. Now there is an economy of scale that comes with the project too. When you look at Delaware 305 and look at 31,000 square feet, there is an economy over that. It's kind of like when you look at a house and you talk about cost per square foot, and if it's a small house, you still have a master bathroom, master bedroom, you still have kitchen and all those requirements. So all those things that drive the cost up, because my living room's a lot cheaper to build than my kitchen with the appliances and stuff. So when the house gets bigger, a lot of times that square footage goes down. That is similar to fire stations that we find. So,
This $500 to $600 a square foot just seems like I'm with your dad on that one. Kooky talk. I'm with your dad. I'm coming.
oh, you bought my dad?
He's gonna fall out of his chair. is
I'm
what he's
falling out of
saying.
my chair.
Yeah.
Just
I get it.
And it's not even his bedtime.
I did sit up when you said how many people put the bid in, because I thought, well, that's got to help in that situation. But like you mentioned, the 9,500 square foot building was at $600 a square foot, and then the Delaware is looking maybe 500 because of the economy of scale. Now, if, let's say at Station 210, there's an addition that would be for housing that would like to touch that building. Once it touches that building, would everything need to be brought up to code, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think you're going to be, when you get into that substantial of an addition, I'm sorry?
Can I build on that? My concern too is if we're going to renovate, you obviously we should bring it up to code. The fact that they don't have a place to go if there's a tornado is outrageous to me. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's relatively new.
So,
Which could be in the new edition. Could have the tornado, the training room,
but then you
the
have
housing.
the exhaust going from the bay. You have the exhaust going from the bay into the living quarters.
Well, I mean, they would be living.
Yeah, it would take a really thorough analysis of that to really
You
look
can't
at
ballpark it off the top of your head,
ballpark what.
like what it would cost to renovate that to be up to snuff, building code wise, and.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that we just basically did that at Delaware, and that's $500 a square foot with an addition renovation.
Okay.
I mean,
So it sounds like to me, from my looking at this, that's gonna cost more money to renovate it than adding You're just better off just rebuilding is what you're,
Well, it depends. You gotta really analyze that, and we were talking about it this morning, the new Fire Chief magazine came out, one of my colleagues wrote an article on when is it time to build new versus, maintaining existing and do renovation. And you gotta totally, sit down and analyze the pros and cons, because just like you were saying about adding a living quarters, well, I've got more concerns about the bays in a lot of ways than I got about the living quarters personally. About the thickness of the floors, the way the drains work, the mechanical systems, all that stuff that goes into that ain't there and working right. I mean, that's a big deal. Cancer in this firefight.
absolutely.
How many guys?
I represent employers for public entities for workers' comp, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there's more death claims that I have to process on a normal basis for firefighters.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's gonna cost way more money for all the premiums you're gonna pay as a bureau for a death claim versus it is to just rebuild or whatever they need to protect themselves.
Well, and there could be a way to do a renovation, remodel, addition that still meets all the needs, like we are doing in Delaware. I'm really proud of that building, and it's gonna serve them well. But, there are settle floors, that always come with an addition renovation. I'm stuck. You've tied my hands a couple ways. I can only react to certain things. And that station in Delaware is a perfect example. The site is real narrow. I mean, Chief wants to drive through base because it makes sense. We can't do that. There's no way to do it. On and on and on.
So how many fire stations do you design to build?
Design, probably 45.
So just, what are you most comfortable with? Like, if you were a trustee sitting at the table, knowing what you know and your 30-plus years experience as an architect focusing on public safety, what would you be most comfortable with to see happen to that station and that site?
That particular station, I would be hard stretched to believe that I'd come back to you and not recommend that gets taken out and a new construction. I'm working in Salina right now on a station in a historical structure. And that has some other different parameters to it that are, on the National Trust of Historic Preservation and stuff. There's some public sentiment that goes with that sentiment. And so it changes how you look at things sometimes. But in that case...
The Regal Boulevard's not the historical section.
It's not. It's not. It's fighting an uphill battle.
Let me ask you, I've kind of two question. If you were to rebuild, is the site big enough where you can rebuild on the site but still keep the existing fire station in the midst of the rebuild? Or would you want to just gut everything and rebuild on top of it?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. We've looked at it both ways. When Chief mentioned the PAR that we were working on, which was the preliminary architectural report, it should go to the USDA. You have to look at options on things, sites that you could build around town which don't exist here that anyone can afford with the price of development out here. So we really quickly began to focus back on that site. There are certain requirements that go with the state highway coming through there and the ability for curb cuts. Chief mentioned the concern about returning apparatus and getting them out of the way of traffic and being able to turn safely. To make a long story short, we looked at options of building separate and looked at tearing down the existing building and building in that area. Now, the problem with doing that is there's additional cost that goes with that because we got to keep them up and living and running. So where are they going to go when we do that? You're not going to live through that one. We are doing, the city of Rocky River right now, we're doing new main station for them. They're tearing the whole thing down. They're getting living quarters for their guys. They're going to be off-site. We're going to build a new station, and then they're going to move in there. At Bay Village right now, we're working with them, and we are doing a renovation addition to their building, and they're going to live through it. And that group of guys is going to hate me before the project is over. I mean, it's just going to be a tough process. It really is. And there's safety issues that go with it, and a lot of other things. Back to your question. You know, if we did do a new facility and we tear down the existing, what that allows us to do is maintain a few things. Maintain our curb cut out onto the 42 in the location we would like to have it at. You know, if we got into, even if we horse traded and got a curb cut to be able to be moved, there's not a great place to relocate it to because of the hill and the traffic happens and what you want to be able to see as you're going out. So that curb cut is in a good position for that. So again, after looking at that, there's plenty of room on that site. But we are focused in our sketch for the USDA was focusing in on rebuilding right where that is and taking it out. Now, back to the question about what are they going to do? You know, we don't know yet, but they are open to, I'm not putting words in your mouth. You know, they may be living in 211, you know.
We have several options. One is move everybody from Station 211 and operate out of one station, or just keep it a skeleton crew, possibly the township builds next door, we use the back of the township building temporarily, possibly use the new township building that's going in. We're just trying to keep the cost as low as we can. If we have to rent a facility, that's an option. But our first priority was securing the funding for the bond issue, and gives us a little bit of time to figure out how we're going to really address that.
It does, it becomes a hard sell too on that temporary quarters, you know, when you're, like we were doing a station up at Avon Lake, Ohio, and our estimate for the temporary facility for that was $1.2 million. That's hard to swallow when you're going to turn around and throw it away, you know. So somebody mentioned earlier thinking outside the box. When we get to this issue, it's going to take thinking outside the box. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, a lot of people working together, those guys sucking it up and focusing on the prize, not the price. And I don't mean cost price, I mean the living through it.
And I do want to speak to, when we did the surveys, all the firefighters and the chiefs and the lieutenants were all surveyed. But when you look at this project, we're not looking for a fire station tomorrow. We're looking at a fire station that's going to last 2 generations of firefighters. That's 25 per generation. So none of the current firefighters that are working today will be at that firehouse when it has to be torn down and rebuilt again. My probably dead and gone, but I would anticipate at least 50, maybe 70 years, but that's why we put a lot of effort in the survey and put a ton of effort in Station 211 and getting that building the way it is today. And looking at that sustainability, the other day we were looking at low maintenance, keeping the maintenance cost, because just coming in and sealing the roof or sealing the concrete or the asphalt, that's just money out of the budget that we're trying to extend out so we don't have to keep on coming back to the residents. With this project, if the bond issue is passed, we would phase in our staffing. Right now, we have to upstaff another station, and we did tear that down. We would phase in that staffing over the next 2 to 3 years, especially, and really increase once we have Station 2 done. And that's kind of why we lean towards renewal, bond issue, come back in 27, 28, and fix it all. But obviously, the problem's never going to go away. It's only going to continue to get worse. Costs are going to continue to skyrocket. I would anticipate in the next 5 years, cost of construction is going to be well over $1,000 a square foot. And it's just,
And you keep saying that renewal and come back later. Are you saying that because you're afraid that it would fail if we put it on the levy for this?
So we've had Chief Roach here to speak to
November.
this. He was here during the nightmare of the 2009 levies. Yes. That's your cue.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
I'm stealing your spot.
Thank you.
I'm Justin French. I've worked for Jerome Township for 25 years. I actually started with a road crew and part-time at the fire department. So Mr. Dodge left. I always like to throw out there.
How many years?
25. So Mr. Dodge was there. I always like to throw out to him, and I don't know if anyone realizes this, but I think it's important to state. His father was a World War II veteran that stormed the island of Peleliu, the Pacific Theater, and was a great supporter of the fire department and one of the toughest Marines you will ever meet. So I wish I would have got to say that in front of him.
Well, he could listen.
I think that deserves to be said. I started full-time in the fall of 2001. We added some staffing in 2004, and we found ourselves in 2008, 2009, in the midst of a recession, that we were struggling financially. Those continual levies from the early 90s had never been serviced. It's interesting to say John Warner, the previous fiscal officer, which, is it true there's only been 3 fiscal officers in 100 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. So the previous,
Yeah.
he warned us those were going to need serviced. So in 2010, we came out with some levies. And we came out with actually what we needed, and we got beat up pretty hard in the public. And it took us 3 tries to pass something just to keep us here, a Band-Aid. And that's all it did. And it wasn't until 2017, when Chief Stewart came here, that we geared up and we incurred at SAFER. Now, I got to mention this on the SAFER grant. They only give that to fire departments that are financially struggling. They don't give that out of the goodness of their heart. Like, we qualified for the equivalent of fire department welfare from the federal government to get those spots funded. A community that we serve here typically would not qualify, but our funding was so low we did. Eric, is that correct? So fast forward, it took us 3 tries to pass additional funding so that we kept the doors open. We renewed those levies once in 2016-ish. We renewed that levy once, and then we added the additional in 2020 and eventually passed it in 2021. I've been here for 7 tries of levies, and 2 have passed. So I guess seeing the support of the community is great. We always have a handful of really zealot supporters, but getting that message out and getting in front of people to get that message out is a completely different struggle, and I've managed and helped manage every one of those levy campaigns. So we feel good sitting here tonight, but it's going to be tough and it's going to be an uphill battle. I guess I refocus things just a little bit to, even if we pass the big fix now, we have nowhere to put them. We have 2 bathrooms and we use the Porta-John out back of the one station. So getting Station 210 rebuilt is a priority for the health, welfare, and safety of our firefighters. And that kind of gives us the moment to get that facility in place and then really be able to address that staffing long term, hopefully sometime between 27 and 2030. Does that make sense? So the support's great because it's going to take, when we do go for a big fix or when we go for a bond issue to replace this fire station, it's going to take every seat at the table up here to be lockstep in unison and everyone bought in to help us go convince the community to take money out of their pocket to do this. We're all going to have to be lockstep on the same page in agreement of what we're doing, and then go out to a public that's can be tough and explain to them the need. And that's our job, to help give the information, to explain the need. But go out and explain that need, what our firefighters are dealing with, and what we need facility-wise to protect them moving forward in the future. So, does that explain everything?
Yeah.
Right together. So, for the folks that showed up, amazing.
Well, my concern is the frightening thing of, I mean, I do think we have a silent community. Like, they're just not, I don't think they are aware, for sure. Because there are some people just in New Cali that don't even know that's a firehouse. It's ridiculous.
It happens, and I've said for years we need a sign out for it. They'll ask, how'd you get there so quick? Like, we're right around the corner. Now, unfortunately, I think the people across the street know we're a fire department because they get the lights and sirens in their windows every night when we leave. So I think there is a lot of silent support. It's how to get them motivated. And we talk about this all the time, is I'm a good fireman, I'm a good incident commander, I'm a hazmat nerd, and I was a really good paramedic when they let me ride the truck. I never once found a training class that said, I'm going to teach this guy who runs into burning buildings how to go out and play politics and sell a levy. I can just go out and speak from the heart and hopefully hit some heartstrings and show some data that sways people, but that's a very tough thing. And I think there are silent supporters out there, but everyone has to be lockstep on the same page, the same mission in mind, and go out to the public, address the facilities so we can address the staffing, so we can keep the forward momentum long after I'm gone. I can retire in 3 years. And even if I chose to stay after that, I'm still out of here by the mid-30s. So it's one of those things, I've made it kind of my personal mission, I guess. I lived through the tough times where we were truly trying to figure out who was going to get laid off and how we were going to do it and who we were going to keep, and explaining to the public that the best thing you're going to get is 2 firefighters showing up in a fire truck, and they can't go in to save you if there's only 2 of them. So I lived through that. I want better for the next generation of firefighters, and I want better for a community that I grew up in. My stepfather's parents owned a farm in Watkins, California. I grew up in Mill Creek Township. I stayed working where I grew up. I want better for this community than what they had access to the previous 25 years of my career. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
I was going to.
Any questions?
Well, my biggest.
Yeah. Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, everybody, so tonight is being live audio, video on YouTube. It'll be there. All you gotta do is go to YouTube, go to Drone Connections. So tell anyone who needed to hear this tonight, they can watch it anytime. Just pull it up by today's date on Drone Connections is the name of it. And it'll take you right to the video that's on right now.
So I would like to say that a lot of people aren't thinking 50 years ahead. You know, trying to sell them on a station that's going to be there and meet their needs for 50 years is going to be difficult. And I would say, well, my first thought was I've done a couple, like where you try to get something that's existing and go in and make it work. And that can get really expensive in a lot of different ways. And I won't go into that. So, you know, when the chief presented some thoughts about the size of the station and the cost and that, I did fall out of my chair because I'm like, we just built a station for just a little over $5 million. Why can't we just build a station down here for $5 million? So I would say that money-wise, we might need to look at something a little less than what's been proposed, and we're going to need to be very conscious in the future of a way we can build this building and make it to where the future can be added on. You know, like make sure we don't put the electric in the way or the gas in the way. You know, have it out of the way. I think I'm with the chief there. We've got to be able to drive our trucks through. I can't believe these guys backing their trucks in when they get back from a call. And the access on the road and everything, you know, like we might need lights that just shut it all down when they leave. But if you go move in that driveway, that does pose other problems. But I'm done.
I think what Justin said makes a lot of sense. You need a building. First, if we think about upgrading staffing, to a certain degree, we do need to upgrade staffing along with that, but until we have a building, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to pump it up. And I saw some numbers here that Robert's provided. Robert's provided. Well, my question is, at what level of staffing can we do the minimum that is necessary and fill up as suggested 3 or 4 years from now? We need to get that building in place. I guess the question is, what are we talking about in terms of bond millage? What's that going to cost the average homeowner too? We haven't even addressed that.
Like we're solely depending on property taxes to do this, where a lot of other fire departments have the municipality with income tax and other ways that they collect. So I just want to reinforce we're dealing just with property taxes.
So I just threw some big numbers out there to give some ideas. So a $10 million 30-year bond levy would be 0.65 mils to meet your debt service requirements. Again, 0.65 would be $20 per $100,000 home. $15 million cost over 30 years would be 0.95 mils, which would be $29 per 100,000. And a $19 million bill would be 1.25 mils, which would be $38 per 100,000.
And what was the estimate on the rebuild that you were talking about?
So we have, in the PAR, we have, actually, I asked Joe to put 3 different levels in there
Yes.
based on the cost of construction. So Joe based it on,
And those were, there were several numbers there, not knowing what year we're building and trying to plan for inflation.
we based it on $600 a square foot, 625, 650. And like Joe said, we don't know because by the time this gets approved and go out to bid, it's going to be between 6 anyway, maybe even farther out. So we have anywhere from 17 million to 19 for the station as it sits, as we put it together right now. And like I said, this is a station.
That's a document I was proofing to.
This is a station that we, on New California, the backside of the building, so there's a lot of improvements in the safety. Not, I mean, outside the fire station itself. Yeah, it's a lot of money, we understand that, but this is about really providing the safety of our firefighters today and the firefighters that haven't even started working yet or haven't even been doing yet for that matter. So,
Once again, what kind of millage do we need to cover that?
So 19 million would be 1.25 mils for a 30 year. So that would be an additional, $38 per 100,000.
and that could add to the value of the township. That millage rate.
Yes, so the millage rate would drop as the value of your house went up, but you still pay the approximately the $38 difference there.
So what you're saying is during a reevaluation period, if your house goes up, it's not like that goes up too. It's
Correct.
But it does not go down when your house is rebuilt.
Correct.
So an additional layer on that is the way you collect more is new construction. When new construction comes on, that adds to your base that you're allowed to collect on. But then in year 2, after the house is built or that building is built, then they are part of the rollback and the effective rate also.
Let's talk a little bit about the environment we're in right now. So, where I live, Jonathan Alder has a school levy that's on the May ballot for 5 mils. That would be a measure of where people are at with the extra millage. The earliest we could put the renewal on would be November. The latest that we could motion to put it on the ballot is August, 90 days before. 90 days before.
Board of Elections, 90 days.
August would be the latest with the formal motion. The bond, if we did the bond, it's hard to ask for a bond levy unless we knew for sure what we were asking for if we were going to do it this November. I had always felt that it would be sometime next year, maybe, in May, or you'd have to decide what type of strategy would be best to get it across the finish line once we knew exactly what we were going to do. Another caveat to the whole, what environment are we in? When does Union County, their every 3-year reevaluation?
Do it right now.
So people would see that in January taxes, or?
Yeah,
or would
tax
it be-
year 25, election year 26, I believe.
Okay, so January 26th, folks' property values get the good news that their house went up in value, then the taxes will go up then. And then we'd be in that. But just wanted everybody to be thinking about those types of things.
How would that affect these numbers for $100,000?
So it would not affect these numbers because, let's say our estimate is based on your $400,000 home, your value is increased to 500, the effective rate. The first year, we wouldn't collect 5.8, we would collect, 5.5. So the effective rate would decrease automatically that first year if you got an increase in value.
Right, so what you're paying is for the same.
Correct.
Go ahead.
I guess from what I'm hearing, though, Joe, you want to delay this, but as the prices of everything keep going up, the longer we learn this lesson to the fire engines, it costs us $400,000 more to delay 9 months. 100-foot ladder truck, who knows what is going to go up if we don't initiate some of this at this point. It sounds like, to me, almost the rebuild of the existing station almost as critical as additional staffing. Am I hearing that correctly, or?
No. And that's about the other, it's our competing priorities and our challenges, basically.
And like you said, it's going to take everybody.
Do we think it's beneficial to have a couple of town halls? Hopefully, we have some people in the room that would get folks here so we can.
Yeah, we need to hear from the public.
We could have one at 2:10, we could have one at 2:11, we could have one here.
I think having the town hall at the firehouses would be
A great idea.
But I think it's important to tell the public what we're thinking about.
Especially at 2:10, I'm telling you, I got it myself.
So, I mean,
I wouldn't want to go through this whole discussion.
Well,
Some more of a consensus of what we're going to tell the public we're thinking about doing before we make the final decision.
I'm an option 1, but I do agree that something's going to happen with the station. We need to have a direction within the station.
so you don't think we need any more staff?
I don't think, I'm concerned that if we ask for more, that we may not be able to get it across the finish line.
I
Then we're going to have
understand
this bond issue to deal with.
But do you believe that we need more staff? I know it's going to be tough.
I believe that with the run volume, that we need, more people.
You do.
We need- But when I first became trustee, it was very, very sparse down there and staffing wise. And when I look back on it, it looked like that was in an effort to get enough money for the fire truck. And 7 tries with 2 successes, which means 5 fails. That's not a good thing. It's like you put out what you need, and then the next time you put out what you need minus some, and then what you need minus some.
Right.
And
I
this
just have a hard
8%
time
growth is really helping us. It's really
I feel like living here though, I was not really told as much. I was not exposed to when you have those brought up. I've been here for 28 years, like where I'm at. So I feel like it was not really out there about. And like you said,
How strong was the campaign? That's what you're saying.
absolutely. We're expecting them to do far beyond, like he said, he's here to serve the public. He's not here really to be like, buddy, rubbing elbows. We do. We need to step up, as a community, and reach out and help them. We all need to help them.
So, town halls at fire stations with information about all the options. What I'd like the trustees to consider is let's not make a decision out of fear.
Yeah.
I don't want to operate based in fear, because I think that we are a very strong board, and people are paying attention right now, and I think that we have to work together, and we can't make decisions rooted in fear. I mean, we have people right here that run into burning buildings to save us. We can't really make decisions based out of fear. Right?
Let me
So-
just throw this out. I'm looking at these numbers and thinking a renewal with a 1 mil increase and the 1.2125 mils for a bond issue is going to increase people's numbers by $69 per 100,000. And that gives us some ability to increase staffing and also the ability to put a bond out there to get a new station. 210. I don't know if that's a starting point for discussion. Where you guys feel?
Where's that a deal killer?
I think that we need to have town halls where we have options saying exactly just the dollar amount and get people's feedback. Can we do a survey?
We sure try.
And
Fire and our.
we'd have to really simplify it though, you know,
Well, it needs to
options.
be 3 options.
Yeah, it can't.
3 options. And what you got with the options, just like how we broke it down.
Mhm.
Option 1 is continue on.
We would need the help of the public to push it, you know, because we can put it out there, but, you know.
I like the town hall thing. I
Right.
do. I think that these people need to see where they're at.
We could have an exit survey at the town hall where they could anonymously fill out and have an option to use some comments.
But having, I
But you
mean,
got more than 3 people show up at the town hall.
Yeah,
but having it on the website,
You're right.
we can post it on social media. You could send it out, Jerome Town, what is our Jerome Village resident
Yeah.
website. I mean, I just think that it doesn't hurt to get as much feedback as possible. I just don't want to say we're only going to do a renewal because we're afraid.
Well, I think what I heard was, it needs fixed, it needs a better fix later, like working maybe on this continual levy, but it's like, almost like we need to do steps. We need to continue operating right now, figure out what we're gonna do with 210, which would be second step, and then the third step would be, how do we now and into the future, as long as we can, staff.
As an outsider, you know, but being around this process a lot, what I've seen the most successful is, the gentleman mentioned it, single message and consistency of message is critical to control the rumor mill.
Right.
And getting that, whether it's a consistent, one of my stations, Chief did a video walking through the station, showing the conditions, talking about the history, and going through and educating through that process. But getting that message totally consistent, everybody seeing the same thing. These guys are answering the same questions the same way. Everybody, not this one firefighter said this and that, you know, just having that consistency.
That's exactly what I don't want to have happen, is we just take care of the bare minimum, and then what we will hear is, well, we just gave you money. We just took care of, you know, but no one really understands what that was for and why the bond is different from the other levy, you know what I mean?
In the town hall at the station, and even if it's not a town hall, having public to that station walking through.
Open house with questions and answers.
I mean, for you to walk through and see what they're living through.
But
We
the call
should-
the town halls out quick, and then we talk.
We'd have to do them soon.
Between now and August would have to be, and then
Okay.
the board needs enough time to, see, what about July?
We have to have everything at the Board of Elections before July 15th. It has to do with certifications and C's.
Okay.
Once everything is July.
Yeah, so,
We have less than 3 months.
2 months. And so, when, could we pick some dates for this and put that out? Like while we're all three here
Do you
talking?
want to pick some dates?
It doesn't have to be a special meeting. Right?
It
Yeah, do
doesn't?
we want to do Saturday morning or?
Saturday mornings would be best, right?
Yeah,
What about that?
Well, I'm thinking about attendance of the public.
okay.
You're there.
We're there. We'll be there. 24 hours a day, we're there 65 days a year. We're there. We're there. Doesn't matter.
You can have a house,
Yeah, it's still two trustees, we got to call it special.
Well, just like I said, the firehouse grand opening, two of the trustees were there.
I know, but we weren't discussing
Yeah, that's right.
anything to have a decision. That's why we have a discussion.
But then if we don't, we could pick the dates later amongst ourselves, as long as we weren't having an official meeting, because we wouldn't have to post, like, follow the posting rules for everybody. We could pick the first one and then we could go to the fifth one, which I think needs to be fairly quick, and we need to have a handout that, like what we have, simple. The trustees are considering 3 options, and here they will be.
All right, well, I'd like to get 3 in. Can we look at something for May, June, and early July?
I think we could do May, 2, and June.
May and June?
I mean, that's my thought, I don't know.
Yeah, because July,
That's getting I mean, honestly, I would do 2 in each month.
and
So
it's,
do we want
do
to
you
do the
think
second and
evenings?
fourth, Saturdays? The 10th, May 10th, May 24th? Well, we probably need to be, and then the 7th and 14th of June?
Yeah. Just getting it in, right, yeah.
We have them all at 210? Are we going to discuss the bonds?
I don't think you should do them all at 210. I think you should do
show
2 at 211 because such a concentrated population is over there too.
Chief wants to
Chief,
touch
what
a
do you
truck.
say?
Car show to June 7th, wants to touch a truck for you guys.
Check with Brad, because he was
And do you
here
think,
that day before.
Of course, it may be all hands on deck at the car show, but it'd be nice if the car show said, hey, you guys call us,
Yeah.
the fire supply.
in your experience
Well-
with town halls around these things, what,
Turnout's poor, you're better off to go to them. You're better off with them. I mean, the last 3 levies we ran, COVID came in the middle part of that, right? So and the best town hall we ever had was probably the very first levy we put on in 2010, and we probably got 20 people in the room.
really,
Yeah, so turnout's usually very poor. I mean, honestly, leaving tonight, every week we go by and make a decision on what package we're putting out this fall. There's another week we're behind selling the package that we have to put out this fall. So I appreciate, I'd rather have the town halls to talk about the need for the levy we're putting on. And then really sell that bond issue to get that station. We've had your, I mean, every time we've done it, we tried to get people in, we put it out, I mean, it's a great idea if they show up, it's just a matter of getting them in the door to see it. And it's a great thing if they get into 210 and see how bad things are, and then if they could get to 11 and see the differences, would be huge.
Okay.
It's a distressing thing when you see 50, 60 people lined up at the food truck at the park out back, and none of them walk down to the open house.
Well, that's why I'm gonna bring a food truck to you, and then maybe they'll.
Could we could coordinate and get ice cream people
That's
up there or
exactly what I was
something?
thinking.
don't know.
I was gonna see if there was a local that was doing So come out and support, I don't know. They do need something to advertise to bring people that you do. You need to have a food truck, ice cream truck or something.
What if we did an ice cream truck before our next couple of meetings and just do it an hour before our meetings?
Here,
Uh-huh.
6 o'clock.
I think you want them at the fire station.
I think you should have it at the town hall for Superior meeting.
I mean, I think have 4 open houses and a total of 25 people.
But
come
I
out.
want to be sensitive to what Justin is saying every week.
I'd rather spend these resources passing whatever package we put in front of others. So the time, the energy, and the resources put along is gonna, we're gonna get more mileage out of it, I think.
All right, how about this? Every trustee and the fire chief commits to connecting with, this is tough, 50 residents, even if you door knock, and with the sheet. I just feel like we need some more feedback than, we know that there's an anti-levy group, right? And I'm sensitive to that.
How about we just do 2 in May and then come to a decision?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about it in depth for 2+ hours.
I'm a
So if I talk
master
to 50
door knocker.
people- If I talk to 50 people for an hour, you know, that'd be a lot. You know. It'd be so much easier if we could figure out what do we need to do to get a crowd. What do we need to do to get a
Do
crowd?
it around lunchtime, have some kind of.
Can we bring a celebrity in? You know, what do we need to do to get
Well, why-
people out here?
Let's not wait till May then.
Do you get more answers by putting something out and saying this is what you're going to do? Because you're gonna get the people saying, hey, I'm either in support of it or not. They're gonna be there to say, yay, or they're gonna say no. Now I know. But
Chief wants
now
5
my
mills, come out and
experience-
stop it.
In my
Maybe that would-
experience, you get the nays.
You
the
will,
naysayers.
but you gotta then convert them over to understand, make them understand why we need it.
And
And the other
that's-
side of all this is that we talked about it before, that we've always backed off. When we decide what we're going on, we need to stick to it. We can't say, okay, well, we're gonna decide this time, and if it fails, then we turn around and come back to them and say, well, we're less than that. Because every time we've done that, it just, okay, well, they're asking for too much. So at some point, we have to say, this is what we need to continue, and then leave it alone. And if it fails, then we have to come back and say we need it. And this is why we need it.
But you even said, you can't go into this with fear. Anything I do, I never teach my kids to do that, ever. So, right? Do you teach your family to fear whatever, to make choice? You don't. So we need to just, the community, we all need to step up and educate everybody, because they don't know. They don't know the conditions that you met specifically. I mean, I knew it was bad there, but I didn't know to what extent. That's awful.
Right,
I don't want them there.
right.
2 dates and then.
Yeah, May 10th, May 17th.
I think we need a little space. Can we do the 3rd and the 17th? You can't do
That's
the 3rd?
pretty.
I can't. But if you
we
could
have-
be there the 3rd, you know, I can't do the 3rd.
Oh,
You would want one of us there.
yeah.
Okay, so when you speak of an ice cream truck, or anybody, we do need something like that. We will. Something to draw people in.
Do evenings work better, ever? It
You're
doesn't-
chasing 2 kids around here in travel season.
Yeah.
And having some of the weekends. I mean, you got that demographic that's out. You probably, that's all I know, it's like to run 2 kids around everywhere, all over the place. And finally get home and take your shoes off and get up and leave again and go. Hear about someone else worried about it.
I can't be there on the 10th. I could do the 3rd and I could do the 17th, but I can't do the 10th. And I'm happy to do the 3rd alone if needs be.
Okay. Barry, what do you think? 10 to noon? What time?
Yeah, that's
10 to noon.
10 to noon.
Town hall, open house, what do you call it? Levy meeting.
Levy, ice cream and levies. I don't know. What do we call it? Open house.
Levy open house. Levy renewal open house.
Ice cream open house. Haha, Levy just got you here. I don't know how to phrase it. Call it an open house.
I would.
Okay. Okay.
You'll do the 3rd and then we'll do the 17th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the chief, let's make sure the chief's there.
Because we've got a trustee meeting on the 20th, and that should be when we make a decision.
Or we could all just do one so that we have a couple under the belt. Like, I'll do 3rd, 10th, 17th. Just 2?
Check the temperature, like you said, with some constituents.
Living in Jerome Village, I actually think Jerome Village would probably support.
Okay, so if we have 2, where are we gonna have 10210 and 10211, like what you're saying? Like, we need to decide.
Well, you're going to do the one during May 3rd, it should be your backyard probably.
Yeah. Okay. So I moved that May 3rd between 10 and 12, that Station 211 have an open house, and also 210 have an open house May 17th between 10 and noon. An open house. A firehouse, open house, levy discussion.
Chief, in the meantime, can you take photos or is there a way that you could do a presentation that's not long, that can highlight some of our issues at 210?
And show some of the disgusting pictures that they're exposed to.
Yeah, we've already got.
Okay, we need that. Is the 3rd too fast for that? Are you okay?
No,
Okay.
we'll get it.
2nd, Jamie?
So,
Robert, what do we need to do here?
No, nothing. It's not a meeting.
Yes,
so
sir.
we don't have-
Okay.
Okay,
Or are we in agreement before, just the 3rd that
Yes.
nods our head?
yeah.
The 3rd and the,
The only thing at the 17th, if all 3 of us are there, if we're going to do any presentation discussion, that needs to become a special meeting.
the first meeting of the day.
First meeting, they just don't have one trustee.
Okay.
Okay?
And then options is, what are we doing so we're not all over the place? We're having one consistent message.
I think we need to have a one sheet, option 1, dollar amount for 100,000.
And what is that? That's
Yeah, we need it to be that basic. Option 2, and then on the bottom, there needs to be a section that says, gets us this. You know what I mean?
Right, he's asking.
When you want the columns to go across.
Yes, I want the columns to go
Yeah,
across.
what are the three? We know that obviously the bond issue, the levy, what are the,
Oh.
what's that dollar, or what's that millage amount? Is it a renewal only, is it a renewal with additional, is it a replacement?
Stay away from millage talk.
Right, yeah, we just
Yeah.
kind of.
Option 1 is a straight renewal
Yeah,
and the bond.
straight renewal, then the 31 for 100,000, and then the 58 for 100,000, and then the bond, which is the 1.2.
That's a 30.
That, well, I think we have
31,
238.
62, 76. I wrote these down, Robert. 31 for 1 mil, 62 for 2 mils, 76 for 2.5 mils.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm about.
And then on the bond was the one that was 38 for $100,000.
Right.
19 mil.
Let me just need to be clear that there's two different issues, levy, bond. That way they don't get confused and say, oh, I just picked between 1 and 4. This is what we're recommending, but it's two separate issues. The bond is for the station construction, the levy renewal, additional, whatever we go with is operations and staffing.
We might just need to focus on the levy and let them know that we are gonna need to do something with Station 210.
I disagree. I see it kind of like options and then a plus bond, under each one so they know.
Yeah.
It's like,
Because if I said, 1.2 mil levy for a $19 million firehouse that's 2,300 square feet, I think I would lose some people maybe just talking to them.
well, we're going to lose people, it's the thing. But it's kind of like renewal, no increase, increase, but each
They would
column
know
has
they
the
asked
bond
it.
and then have the total at the bottom. So they know what the dollar amount increase is for their own, they can do the math in their head for themselves. They know what their home
Do we
is.
even want to have three options? What I'm looking at is, well, I guess you've got 1 mil and 2 mil is your third option. Is that better?
Yeah.
I think present 3 options. But under each one, though, we need to say, this is 7 staff members, this is 10, you know what I mean?
Right, what does this buy?
What does this levy and bond get you under each column?
Gives you somebody that's gonna save your kid's life
Mhm.
now, or save your home from being burned down.
But the goal of showing the 3 options, correct, is to have them eventually, are we still having them do an exit survey? Having them look at 3 options just informs them of information. That does not tell them what the board is getting ready to adopt that's going to be presented to the Board of Elections in August. So if your goal of sharing 3 options is to have them make a choice on their own as they leave, or to take an online survey, that's fine. But if you're doing 3 options without asking a survey, then what's the point of
I
sharing
think we
3
should
options?
I think we should have a survey.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there would have to be something maybe on a tripod that has all of this information, the 3 options on a billboard of some sort, easily displayed, plus hand them something that they can take with them and chew on. But what we're really wanting them to do is capture a survey on their way out, correct?
Yes.
Or while they're there?
Or while they're there.
Okay.
We
And-
really want to fill it out and drop it in the box.
Correct.
Period. And then you get an ice cream voucher. I don't know what we could do.
Yeah, don't give them the ice cream till they fall.
So
Yeah.
then,
Can we spend money on ice cream? Okay.
but
So
just to be
we
clear,
could provide ice cream if they did a survey.
if they do the survey, then what impact is, I guess you don't know that.
Here-
You're not gonna know yet
here's
what
what I
that
would like to
impact
say.
has on your final vote. correct?
Well, we could pump these surveys out in town halls, then we could also pump them out online. And then what we could do is say, hey, listen, 86% of the residents that took this survey feel that this is best. And we can say that in a public meeting, which helps.
I hate to interject this, but you need a 4th choice, not only above. Because there's going to be people that don't agree with any of those options. And we want to know that, too.
Well, letting go of option 1 isn't an option. I mean, we've got to maintain what we've got, or we're going to be, like Justin said, deciding who gets laid off.
We can say or nothing, which means we have to fire, 5 guys.
So the option would be, we don't want to fear people to,
Yeah. That's just the reality of it. Okay.
Okay. Robert, go ahead.
So let's get this done. Renew, no increase, renew, and we talked about 1, 2, and 2.5.
Yeah.
So do you want this to be no increase, or do you want this to be 1, 2, and 2.5? Do you want this to be 0, 1, 2?
Just renewal
Okay,
is option 1.
okay.
Then it is and I'm just going on the dollar amounts that we gave.
31,
Yes.
that's a 1,
Yes.
okay?
And then was it 58? 62?
Yep, that's a 2,
Okay.
okay.
And then the bond
Yeah.
underneath.
And as long as
as a package, and then what do you get? And then to Barry's point, sure, give them a none of the above, and then here is what we would have to do. We'd have to let go half of the staff. Okay. I mean, we're just dealing in facts, so.
No, reiterate.
The survey is on Brandon. We'll take care of it.
Would you repeat what you just said, like, those three options?
Yeah, so renew with no increase, renew with a 1 mil increase, and renew with a 2 mil.
But we're gonna
And
be
the bond
seeing is on,
included in each of those
Plus the
three.
bond. Each one of these is.
So we're not, we're
together.
checking the 2.5 option is my question.
You're saying the sheet that we hand people
Correct.
would be the survey also? Or they would have a separate survey that just was a quarter sheet of paper that said,
do you think the 2.5 is a stretch, or do you think we should add it as an
I
option?
think the 2.5 is a real stretch. In my
Chief, what do you
opinion.
think?
It's all based
I'm
on
worried about
education. If we can get out there
the
with
bond.
education, then yeah, we can get it.
I think the 38 plus 62 is 90. It's right there at $100. If you go over $100 increase, that's pushing it in my mind. The average resident. Because even if we do need more, but I think that's.
Plus the bond.
That
$100
includes the
plus
bond. Yeah, includes the bond and a 2 mil. That's $100.
See, option 1 is just renew, option 2 is half a mil, and then option 3, 1 mil. And then we would at least know where people were. That would be an easier place. But when you're talking $15 versus $30 per 100,000, does that compute with people? Then when I see that $60 or 50, whatever, I'm like, whoa.
I don't want option 3 to be, what did you say?
Option 3
Just
is
for
1
another option.
mil.
No.
No, I'm gonna give a lot of energy.
I think we need to have, I think there's enough difference between each of those options that it will help us to figure out what people are willing to do.
So 3 options, renew, plus 1, plus 2.5. Or plus,
Plus 2.
plus 2, okay, plus 2. All right,
And May 17th is our touch a truck at Glacier, so we have another opportunity there as well. And we'll see a ton of people in that.
Well, so we can do the May 17th in your firehouse, anybody touch a truck is.
we could,
Decide.
we could
did the 10th and
tell them,
12th. Or no, I'm sorry.
No, we did the
Today
30th,
is
17th.
17th. Yeah. We'll figure out something.
I mean, because they could send them to the fire station for ice cream or whatever. Okay.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, you ready?
You good with those?
Yes.
Options?
Yes.
The time is 7:53, I move that we adjourn this special meeting.